Hey guys, what's going on? This is your old pal, CHH. So, the other day, this happened for like maybe the 10th or 12th time, and I figured, let's just do a video about this. But of course, I'm doing a video with a little bit of a spin to give you guys a little bit of good news in regards to this. So, what's this video about? Well, obviously you know by the title, but somebody a few days ago asked me if Day of the Dead was ever going to come to 4K, or if I knew anything about Day of the Dead coming to 4K. Well, the answer is, I don't know anything about it coming to 4K, but I do have an idea about why it hasn't come to 4K, and we're going to talk about that right now. The reason Day of the Dead has not come to 4K is because of the information I got from the gentleman who created Scream Factory. So, if you didn't see this, earlier this year I did a big interview with Cliff McMillan. It was amazing. We talked about Nightmare on Elm Street, we talked about the Friday the 13th box set, the Halloween box set, the Sleepaway Camp sequels, you name it. We covered all of it on that interview. But something I forgot to ask during the interview, and I asked after the red dot went off, which unfortunately nobody was able to hear, was a reference to this. The movie Day of the Dead, one of the greatest 80s movies of all time. George Romero, who's my favorite director of all time, he made a masterpiece. A masterpiece, mind you, that most of us needed to watch a few times before realizing it was a masterpiece. And that's okay. There are movies that are like that. I asked him why this movie wasn't on 4K, and here's what he told me. He said, well, when we did the Blu-ray for Day of the Dead, we couldn't find the negative, so what we used was something close to the negative. Now, I don't remember if he said it was the inner positive or anything like that, but basically, you know, what they used was not the negative. Now, that release came out, believe it or not, this came out in 2013, which means this Blu-ray is 11 years old. Can you believe that? 11 years old for the Day of the Dead Blu-ray. It just goes to show how fast time is flying. So, I said, well, what happened? Did you guys not try to do a 4K based off of those elements? I mean, I think I've heard of inner positive 4Ks. I'm not saying it's going to be the best 4K ever, but I think most people just want to see this film look as good as it possibly can. It's Day of the Dead. We all watch this movie, I don't know, most of us watch this like once a year, like easily. And he said, well, here's the problem. The elements that we used for that Blu-ray the last time we looked for them, those were in fact now missing as well. Now, I don't know where he said they were, or if he even said this is where they were, but now we're in a position where no original elements or anything close to the original elements for Day of the Dead exist, or not exist, but are in anyone's possession. There is a chance the negative for Day of the Dead is somewhere out there, but it seems like nobody knows where it's at. And if you say to you, if this is like, if you had thought to yourself, maybe, well, why is it not on 4K? Then you look overseas, the only thing that's available overseas is an umbrella Blu-ray for Day of the Dead. Now, nobody else has put it out. Nothing overseas has come out. As a matter of fact, I don't think there is any sort of 4K anywhere in the world made for Day of the Dead. It truly is a movie that has been stuck on Blu-ray. So the bad news is, I tell you, don't get rid of this. Do not get rid of your Day of the Dead Scream Factory Blu-ray. There is a chance this is all we're ever, and I mean ever, going to get for this great movie. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, because let's talk about this release. It's obviously a high-definition transfer, but there's new documentaries, The World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead, which is great, an audio commentary with George Romero, special effects makeup artist Tom Savini, production designer Cletus Anderson, and actress Lori Cardiel. There's behind-the-scenes footage from special makeup effects artist Tom Savini's archives. There's photo galleries, theatrical trailers, TV spots, and more. This is not a bad release. This is actually a really good release, and that documentary with George Romero is great. I love that documentary that they did. But here's what's interesting. This release is different. This is something I would say own if you can get it at a fair price. On this release, guys, check this out. On Blu-ray, the first disc, the Blu-ray, we have the audio commentary with George Romero, Tom Savini, Cletus Anderson, and Lori Cardiel, an audio commentary with Greg Nicotero, Howard Berger, Everett Burrell, and Mike Deek, World's End, The Legacy of Day of the Dead, behind the scenes on set, behind the scenes with Tom Savini, interview with George Romero at the MIFF in 2008, theatrical trailers, TV spots, Gateway Commerce Center promo video. But here's what's so cool about this release, and if you don't own this, it's worth it to have it for this. There is, on disc 2, The Many Days of the Dead, Joe of the Dead featurettes, Reflections of the Living Dead. Travelogue of the Dead and Image Gallery. Reflections of the Living Dead. I have a Blu-ray of this, and this is a documentary about Night of the Living Dead. It is sensational. It's from the early 90s. It has all the great directors talking about just how important Night of the Living Dead was. It is amazing. So the fact that this release had that is pretty remarkable, if you ask me. Here's this release, like this Umbrella release is really cool. I highly recommend it. Here's the disc art. And I think this actually has reversible art, which has, look at that, George Romero's Day of the Dead. Very, very cool. Nothing beats that poster art that they have on here, the original poster art. But yeah, this is from Umbrella. So you've got two really cool releases you can have right here. The Day of the Dead's really cool. The Scream Factory one is great. This is a good release. I'm happy with this release. Obviously, I want a 4K. But if this is all this is all we're going to have from Scream Factory with this release, I'm not going to complain too bad. They did a really good job with that. That was during the absolute golden era of Scream Factory. There's no doubt in my mind that was the golden era. So they were putting every bit of effort into it. And that's when they were doing bodies of work. They weren't taking 7 interviews and just chopping them up to make the square look really fat with all the features. That's where they put stuff together and made and told the story, like with their documentaries. Now, this is where the video takes the good old CHH turn. So let's say that we're never going to get a 4K. It doesn't look like we are. Now, let's just assume we don't. There is a cool release that I think would be something a lot of you guys would probably like to get your hands on. It's a really cool, prestigious release that'll kind of scratch that itch of just getting something for Day of the Dead. Let's go back to 2003, guys. Let's look at this. This is the Anchor Bay Deluxe Divimax DTS Audio Day of the Dead release. Look at that. That is so cool. Now, I got this at a Second and Charles for $7.95. Now, this is a release that's going to actually give you a little bit of that, really cool feeling of something with cool presentation and cool packaging. Look at Bub on the front. Now, you grab him right here, and he pops off on the tab. That is remarkable. Now, this was during the golden era of DVDs. This is when DVDs really started to be a huge thing. Look at that shot on the front. Let's just kind of take that in. So when you open this up, if you get it complete, it has something really cool. That's this right here. This booklet for the Day of the Dead. Now, what's so cool about this is when you open it up, there is actually reviews and people of interest talking about the movie, and there's these awesome drawings of zombies on the front. I'm going to read this to you. This is from Roger Ebert. You ready for this? All right. In the earlier Living Dead films, we really identified with the small cadre of surviving humans. This time, the humans are mostly unpleasant, violent, insane, or so noble that we can predict with utter certainty that they will survive. According to the mad scientist in Day of the Dead, the zombies keep moving because of primitive impulses that create the appearance of life long after consciousness and intelligence have departed. I hope the same fate doesn't befall director George Romero's zombie movies. He should quit while he's ahead. So, it actually is a positive review. It sounds like Ebert actually enjoyed Day of the Dead, but it's so funny reading this because he's basically saying, hey, Georgie, stop. Which he was kind of right. Now, granted, I love Diary of the Dead, but to say it's the caliber of the first 3 would be shenanigans. It'd be silly. And I like Land of the Dead too. It's got some issues. Clearly, it was Romero going up against the studio. Thoughts, and they had a lot of things they wanted him to do differently. I don't think Romero really liked working with the studios. He kind of would do the same thing with Bruiser, but that's cool. But also in here, like the next one, I won't read all of this, but the next one was from John Russo, and the first sentence is really interesting because it says, I honestly didn't care for George Romero's Day of the Dead the first time viewing it. And he goes on to talk about how he likes the movie and things like that. And it's interesting because I think a lot of us watching this, or a lot of us here together right now, would agree. I didn't love Day of the Dead the first time watching it. It was truly a movie that I had to watch again and again, and I started to get a different opinion on. And it grew like a germ. It grew like a weed, and it became a masterpiece. Most people will tell you that Day of the Dead is their favorite out of the three. And it's really not a movie about zombies. I think any great zombie movie is not about that. A great zombie movie has a great theme and some sort of a life lesson in there. But the drawings in this booklet, if you get this, guys, you have to get it with the booklet, because the booklet's so cool. Look at that. Look at those pictures. But it's got all kinds of cool write-ups from people. They talk about the making of this release, that sort of thing. So cool. Yeah. Yeah, I love it, guys. Look at that. Yeah, the good old days of Anchor Bay, man. I've done a number of videos on Anchor Bay stuff, and what can I say? I think the heyday of Anchor Bay is still tough to beat. Now, there's stuff coming out today that's amazing from Umbrella and Second Sight, Arrow, and still Scream Factory. But man, holding these releases in my hand and going through some of them, it's like, wow. Some of this stuff is still very competitive. And I'll cover this up because it's nudity on the back, but you got your title card on the back of that. So, when you get that open, if it's complete, it'll have that. Look at this. Look at the inside of that. That is cool. That is wicked cool. Let's take the discs out so you can see the pictures. God, look at that, guys. So cool. So it's a 2-disc release. Obviously, one of the discs is bonus materials, and the other disc is the feature presentation. The movie looks good on this release. It's not as good as the Blu-ray, but if you watch this, it would not be something that would even be remotely bothersome to you. It looks really good. Let's talk about the special features on this. On disc 1, it's a widescreen presentation enhanced for 16:9 TVs, audio commentary with writer George Romero, special makeup artist Tom Savini, production designer Cletus Anderson, and actress Lori Cardiel. We also have an audio commentary with filmmaker Roger Avery. Now on disc 2, we have a lot of stuff. The Many Days of the Dead, an all-new 39-minute documentary featuring the writer George Romero, producer David Ball, special makeup artist Tom Savini and Greg Nicotero, production designer Cletus Anderson, assistant director Chris Romero, and actors Lori Cardiel, Joe Pilato, and Howard Sherman. We also have Days of the Dead behind-the-scenes, 31 minutes of production footage from Tom Savini's archives, audio interview with Richard Liberty, Wampum Mine promotional video, theatrical trailers, TV spots, production stills, behind-the-scenes photos, posters and advertising art, gallery of memorabilia, zombie makeup photo gallery, continuity stills gallery, George Romero bio, and a DVD-ROM, original screenplay, and promotional production memos. Yeah, the good old days of the DVD-ROM screenplays. So, listen, I truly hope that one day we will get a 4K and it'll happen, but I've been asked so many times about, do I know if it's coming, and I try to answer everybody, but I was like, it'd be a whole lot easier if I made a video about this, that way people could see it. Any of these releases are good. I think between the two, I like the Umbrella one because of the reflections of the Living Dead, but you can get that on Blu-ray in America, that documentary, and it's great. And this release is great. I mean, this Dawn of the Day of the Dead Blu-ray is great. But if you want to get something to scratch that itch, you haven't gotten anything for Day of the Dead in so long, and you want to get something, you're looking for something, you want to be able to enjoy the film again, and you want to do it through a different release. God, the Anchor Bay days were great. This Day of the Dead release is sensational, and it's one of my favorite Anchor Bay releases I have. So, yeah, stock, just chock full of features, really cool design. What's not to love, guys? So, a little bit of bad news and a little bit of good news. So there you guys have it. Day of the Dead. It may not be getting a 4K anytime soon, but Anchor Bay put out this great release. I hope you guys can go check out and try to get this pretty cheap. I got mine for $8. But for now, this is your old pal CHH saying, man, above all else, go revisit this movie again. It's a damn masterpiece. Rest in peace, George. We love and miss you. Huge, giant thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. Without you guys, this would not be possible. To get behind-the-scenes photos, videos, music, private live streams, and much more, you can subscribe to my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Thank you to my patrons.